Man, that beard is looking good.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
It's coming in nicely. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Billy Collins.
Matt Doje
And this is Magician.
and the Jock.
Matt, who do we have back in studio?
The one,
The only.
half man, half amazing, Mr. James Cummings.
Round two. So nice. We're going to do it twice.
I know, right?
We're gonna even-
Couldn't get enough of you.
We're
Couldn't get
gonna
enough.
even turn them. We're gonna even plug in the microphones this time.
Ah, that's always a plus.
So, but yeah, man, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here, guys. I appreciate it.
Been chasing you for a while.
You have. I appreciate the relentlessness of it, man. I always tell my kids between water and the rock, water always wins.
That's right.
So don't stop asking.
That's a Bruce Lee
I
quote
like it.
Might be.
or something. I don't know.
I thought be water forms to anything.
Yeah,
Assume
That's
formlessness. Yeah, that's another
something
good
like
one.
that. He talks about water a lot.
Punching the fish tank full of water.
I grew up on the water, so coincidence? I think not.
I think water adapts to you.
There's no water in this cup. That
that
it's
is-
a square. But no, I've been hitting you up because there's just been so much stuff going on. You always have a really good perspective on. You're a big thinker, so you like to think of, how does this play into this? You're more than just a business owner or
Sure. Yeah, I try.
great golfer.
Now we're moved straight to lies. I need to let the audience know too that right before we hopped on camera, Matt told me that really one of the things he felt like he needed to get most successful at was interviewing nobody, and that was the last thing he said to me right before we hopped behind this microphone.
I just have a mirror in there. I'm like,
I'm going to put that up with the great pregame talks that I've had in my short athletic career. As we get fired up. But yeah, there's a lot going on in the world right now, man. It's just a crazy place, right? We moved right from COVID to war, and we
It's
nonstop,
like
you
a
know.
30-second commercial in between those two.
I saw a meme. It was like James Gandolfini or whatever the guy is from The Sopranos.
Gandolfini,
like,
yeah.
And he was like smiling walking down the street, and it was back when it was only just the pandemic, So,
Yeah, it's like we've got you all really worried and worked up right now. So instead of dialing that back, let's just transfer that anxiety over to Western Europe.
Yeah, that's-
And do you? So I've wondered this. It's like, do you think the world is actually crazier now, or is it you can set your phone to get an alert every time anything crazy happens? We're instantly plugged in. It's been a fallen world for a long time.
Yeah, no, the world's not I don't believe in the idea that the world is a worse place at all. In fact, I think if you were to look at basic parameters like starvation or hunger or
By every
access to
metric,
capital,
it's gotten better.
Oh,
Yeah.
it has. I mean, and you look at all of the and honestly, if you were to look at the difference between let's take the world in 1800, right? Or even like how my grandmother grew up. My grandmother grew up in Davidson County, North Carolina, with no electricity. She did not get electricity until she was like 12. She didn't get a running water for a bathroom in her house until she was 18.
Yeah.
That's 2 generations removed. And then if you look at every single improvement in our life, well, capitalism has done every single one of those things. And I think I think what we lack is probably proper perspective.
Sure.
I think we're raising a generation that thinks for some reason or another they're troubled and that it's so hard and it's so bad. But
You have to
man,
manufacture reasons.
yeah,
But everything's
manufacture
going so
depression.
good. Discontent's a human condition. So we're,
yeah, I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of years did the world struggle with starvation or hunger? And we don't die from that anymore in America. I mean, we solved that
especially not in the
problem.
West. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not even so much in the East now either.
So, no, I don't think the world's a worse place. But what we do have is if anything happens bad, we have instant access to it. And not only that, somehow like lab rats, we've been programmed to have our phone buzz and tell us when something bad's happened.
Hold on one second. Something bad just happened.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I take it all back. It is worse.
You might want to turn off the red light.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
All right, sorry guys.
Oh,
You
yeah.
turn the red.
Isn't that a song? Roxanne.
you don't have to. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, keep going.
Bruce Lee said that
Turn on
once.
the
Bruce Lee said, "Turn off the red light."
In a hot tub
Yeah.
of water.
assume
With rocks.
But yeah, there is that instant. I don't even want to call it gratification, but it is the microwave generation. I mean, that's what technology has done. It's made everything so much more efficient, and that is also true on communication. And now speed is the new currency when it comes to breaking stories or.
Well, and the thing about with news and the speed to get people want to get something out to get recognition. They don't fact check it. They don't even if it's bullshit, they're still going to
can't
put it
afford
out.
to.
Yeah,
'Cause
because
you-
and
like-
right.
What did Dan Kennedy say? If you're not the cheapest in town, it makes no business sense to be the second cheapest. You know, you might as well be the most expensive. It's kind of the same way with news. Like if you're not the first,
You're
there's
not
no
first.
benefit to be.
And
There's
that whole
no
idea
second-breaking story.
that a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth can get its pants on.
Mark Twain.
Essentially, it's okay to be wrong. It's just you got to be first because it's all about eyeballs. And really, we talk about we have freedom of the press, freedom of speech, but what we really all need to recognize is that we have freedom of the profitable press.
Right.
And that the press has to turn a profit in order to be a business, a going concern. And unfortunately, with technology, what they've learned is that it's more profitable to deal in outrage. It's more profitable to be fast. You want to get the eyeballs and you want to get the clicks. That's much more important to profit than truth and kind of long-term thinking. So I am encouraged. There's a lot of what I would call secondary news sources that seem to be developing off of this. Substack, Barry Weiss. I mean, there's a lot of really great thinkers out there that are putting out some good product. But I think where we get our news from is going to change over the next 5 to 10 years because I don't think that cable news is a long-term successful.
It already has. I mean, we're looking. This is a free platform. We're putting stuff out. I mean, there's. I was watching the election coverage on Steven Crowder. He had over 500,000 people tuning in on the live stream. That like dwarfed the numbers of these. CNNs
and everyone, Joe Rogan can't controversy, right? I mean, so Rogan gets 8 or 9 million downloads a week, probably more now.
Oh.
And when they were trying to
Neil Young
cancel him,
learned that.
when they were trying to cancel him, a lot of people realized that I don't believe CNN has a single show that draws over 1 million watches, and here Rogan's getting 9 to 10 million a day. So.
It doesn't matter where it goes.
And
People are gonna
it's
follow
changing.
him.
It's funny that you said that because he does get the backlash, but he's got such a big following now that even those that were causing harm in the past, the CNNs bringing out the news about him using the N word, kind of backfired on him because he now has gained more, not respect, but more.
That was a hit job from Big Pharma. BlackRock. I mean, Rogan dared speak out against the vaccine. He had a couple guests on that kind of questioned the emergency use, and that was absolutely a hit job on him. That thou shalt not speak out against the party because Rogan is a left-leaning, almost borderline socialist. Voted for Bernie Sanders.
Yep.
I mean, he is. He is from the left, but he is a dude that pursues truth. It's regardless And you saw very quickly that when he got out of line and questioned
If you just ask
the narrative,
a question,
oh,
you don't even have to have a stance.
Yeah.
Just saying, hey, do we need this? What? Are you implying we don't? You're killing people? Okay, time. Yeah.
fascinating how hard they went after him and how coordinated it was. But
Chris, I think you brought this up, and someone said Rogan's almost like the new Trump. They need a Trump.
Yeah.
They need someone that's got a lot of attention.
Rogan, and then you've got Bill Maher. I think I'm saying his name right.
Bill
from
Maher.
HBO. Bill Maher from HBO.
They're going after Tucker a lot now too. They're like, you got him in there.
They got Tucker, but did you see the numbers on Tucker's show? They got more liberals watching Tucker's show, young liberals in that age range of like 20 to 30. They're watching Tucker more than anything else on the network. So it's really interesting. But I think they probably could have taken Rogan out 3 or 4 years ago. But I think that he'd kind of almost outgrown him, and I don't think they understood that just kind of their old playbook of he said this or that, let's cancel him. That didn't work because he had a big enough platform to kind of speak to the truth, and it was nice to see him survive that and come out on the other side. I mean, he's going to make a whole lot more money. He's actually going to become the. You want to talk about? I mean, so you got the Democrats in Washington picking on Elon Musk right now, right? They're leaving Tesla out of all these electronic car talks, and you got Rogan over here, and they're taking a shot at them. Put Musk and Rogan together and let them create a platform, and that would get interesting very quickly.
It was a fun podcast. Listen, you remember that when Elon came on there? Boys, that was in mind.
Oh yeah,
That's the first time he spoke pot.
But it actually helped. Like it humanized.
Yeah.
There's what social media has done is gotten rid of the gatekeepers between the normal peasants and the elite, the celebrities. These, now you can leave a message to a celebrity, whereas before, Frank Sinatra, you would he was
You'd
a
have to write a
commit.
letter
He was a
and-
ghost to 99.999% of people. You know, they saw him on TV. Whereas now these platforms, all these platforms were designed, they're social media networks, you know, to connect people. It's gotten rid of the gatekeepers, and now you can see the old playbook's getting ripped up.
Yeah, that's been interesting. So where were we? Ukraine?
But we were talking about obviously the amount of stuff that's happened in this country.
Wow.
You maybe bring up the stat that you said.
Yeah, so may you live
Just put
in
it into
interesting.
perspective. Yeah.
The Chinese curse is, may you live in interesting times, and I would say that I think we'll look back on this and really kicking off with COVID, and we'll call it March of 2020. It's the last 2 years have just been fascinating. So I saw that our national debt had ticked over 30 trillion the other day, and I was like, whoa. And so I wanted to go back and just take a historical look at.
Was it a gradual or was it yeah?
Well, yeah. So what I figured out was I went back and the United States national debt on 9/11. Okay, and that would have been 9/11/2001, which is 20 years ago, essentially. Was, I don't want to get this, I think it was 5.8 trillion. Okay, so that means that from 1776 until 2001, this country accumulated 5.8 trillion in debt.
And there were people saying that's out of control.
What are we doing?
Right.
Okay, but from that day until today, we've added about roughly 25 trillion. But specifically, what made my heart kind of go, is that in 9 months during COVID, we went about 6 trillion in the hole. So that means that we went more in debt in 9 months in our response to COVID-19 than we did in roughly the first 200, and let's call it 30 years
Two
of our country.
wars, Vietnam,
The Korean
the
War,
Spanish
the Great
flu,
Depression. I mean, so I think that, while that's bad, I want to spread the blame out, because really I would say it was Bush's response to the 9/11 attacks. I think in perspective, looking back, maybe we didn't need to spend those few $1 trillion in war over there. I think Obama just kind of took the torch and ran with it. Trump certainly wasn't, regardless of what anyone says about Trump, he wasn't into cutting budgets. And a lot of our COVID policy and our initial response under COVID was Trump, some of his mistakes. He was too willing.
Like, I never signed a check that had a T
Well,
on it.
Trump's a real estate guy, right? He doesn't care about debt. It's just on paper.
OPM, baby.
But when you take a look at that and you start to digest that, okay, in 9 months we went 6 trillion in the hole, and that's more than we did the first 230 years of the country. No wonder we have inflation right now. I mean, we just printed, through modern monetary policy, MMT, basically just printed about $6 to $8 trillion and just threw it out into the economy and said, here you go. So I'm worried, for the next couple of years. I don't see inflation going away for 2 or 3 years. I think that it's just going to keep rising. And unfortunately, inflation is a tax on everybody that has a fixed income. And we have a lot of people in our county that, either you work on base or you work with the school system, or if you're somewhere where
Social Security.
yeah, man,
At the hospital.
if you're getting the same amount and you don't have the ability to change that amount each month, inflation is very tough on you. You have to start making a lot of choices from a buying decision that your life's not as good as it was. It's less going out to eat, less doing this, less doing that. Inflation, punishes everybody.
So there's a ripple effect, but when you say that, hey, 6 trillion, and then for however 300 years or whatever, it was less than that. That couldn't be done without the populace being okay with it, right? What did Colin Powell say? Never let a good crisis go to waste. So they couldn't I know they people rose up, but they couldn't do it. We're almost letting it happen in a sense. They're the government. There is that.
Well, you look at, and I'm going to blame fear, right? I mean, look, our response to 9/11 was very fear-based, right? We've been attacked domestically. These 2 iconic towers in New York had been taken down by planes. They tried to bomb them earlier, but they'd taken them down by planes. And there was a lot of fear that there were these suitcase nukes out in the Middle East, and we were just worried. And so Bush's response to 9/11 It's hard to judge people historically looking back, but it was very fear-based, and we spent a lot of money. And then our COVID response was very fear-based. And right out of the gate, I think that there were some companies that recognized they could make a lot of money through COVID. And so here's my thing on COVID, right? Is that when I looked at it, I said, okay, well, all right, the pharmacy companies are making a lot of money. And the pharmacy companies are owned by these hedge funds like BlackRock. And BlackRock also owns the network news. And they're making more money because there's more people home now. And all the social media apps are making more money because more people are engaged because they're at home because we're working remotely. I was like, and those are all the people that tell me about COVID.
It's like how much of this is happy coincidences?
Well,
Or how much
yeah.
is...
And Amazon's making money. And not to be a conspiracy theorist, but what I recognize is that everyone that was giving me my COVID information was making more money if there was COVID. And so that doesn't seem like a situation where you would get through something efficiently.
You got to be careful because you'll eventually get to the point where, like, you know what?
Reality
those
sets
flat
in.
earthers are starting to make a lot of sense.
Wait a
You
minute.
go down some rabbit holes.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yes, I mean, what I was really interested to talk to you about, obviously, too, as a business owner, you know, like COVID. If pretend we have this was our business, right, and we just created content like this, it's not going to have. It'll probably help us more than hurt us, because people are consuming content.
Right,
you
right.
know, Joe Rogan was testing people on in and out, but you know, it was a little bit different than someone owning a 50 hair salons, which you're talking about the power of zero.
Yeah. So, and that has that's taken a long time to come back. I'm happy to report that really in like the last 4 weeks, believe it or not, is the first time that our customer count has been close to where it was pre-COVID. So you know, I don't know if that's a barometer of where people are with their fear or where we are with collisions. And you know, I'm blessed because a lot of my salons are in red states areas. You know, we're here in Eastern North Carolina and we're in Tennessee. So people aren't as fearful. But really the business has just come back in the last month. And by back, I mean, we've been running about 80 to 90% customer count wise where we were in the haircut business, but we're back up to about 95%. So that's good.
Yeah.
So what happens, you know, right when the customers come back? Well, we have World War III maybe starting in the Ukraine. So,
Right.
But is it? I can't figure out yet. I don't know if I'm supposed to be. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel on Ukraine.
Yeah, because
I can't understand a word they say.
well, the thing for me is like Ukraine was.
It's part of
Everybody's like,
Russia.
well, we hate Russia. But it's like, wasn't Ukraine's not the most
It was Russia.
decent people to us?
Yeah, and they had a like, this is not my wheelhouse, but I know that at some point they had kind of a revolutionary government come in. I think it was called the Orange Revolution. It was like 2014, and they came in and kind of flipped it over. And the guy that's there, he was like a former comedian. He's kind of running the country, but he's not really running that as a democracy. Like he's very strong-handed, but he's kind of been in a little bit of a pissing match with Putin, and he's been kind of making overtures to the West, like, hey, we may join NATO.
Yeah.
And from a practical standpoint, Putin's sitting there. He's like, that ain't happening in my backyard. Like, I got to get my oil through that country to the Black Sea. Yeah, you're not joining NATO. And so it's almost like we backed Putin into a corner, whether, you know, I don't know where people are going to come out on this, but and there's such a close relationship between Ukraine and Russia. Like, people keep showing this video of the fighting, but you also see a lot of people in those videos just walking around, not really concerned that there's tanks rolling through the middle of the street.
You know what I was saying? I saw this video earlier. They were like, Ukraine fires back, and they have all these missiles. I haven't seen one plane hit yet. It was like, are you just shooting fireworks out at these people? Because nothing's being blown
A lot
up.
of them are wearing their masks, though. So
COVID's over.
they're not masks. Oh, they are
Right,
wearing
yeah,
them?
and more.
Okay.
But we see all this firing and bombing, but nothing gets destroyed. It's like no one's, you know, or you don't.
I know. Well, and I feel like that the media is trying to figure out who to blame. Like they want to, like everything in America now, you have to, there's no nuance. You know, we're terrible at understanding historical context. We really just want to be able to boil something down to a 6-second TikTok video so we can blame somebody.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty interesting to watch them float well, it was Trump's relationship with Putin, or and then you got the Republicans floating no, it was Obama's fault because he let him invade Crimea. You know, both sides of the political party are trying to boil this down to something stupid. which really, the Ukraine-Russian relationship in the last 100 years and looking at Europe and through World War II, it's a very complex situation. Putin has a lot of natural interest to protect his borders, to make sure that he can export his oil, which makes up a gigantic portion of his. And I'm not defending Putin, but I'm saying, despite the media's best attempts in America, we are not going to be able to boil this down to 6 seconds of who to blame.
Right.
Like we did with COVID, right? Everyone was evil on this side or evil on that side. They got what they wanted there. And one of the things I'll say about the media, and you'll learn this, is they only cover that which divides us perfectly. And if they can't figure out how to divide us perfectly on Ukraine, it'll go away. But if they can figure out a way to drive a wedge between us so that everybody on each side of the Ukraine issue hates each other, oh, you're going to hear about it every day, which is why Trump's been great for him. It's why COVID was great for him. It's why school shootings are great for him, because they already have people preordained on both sides of those fences to scream at each other. So always remember that only that which perfectly divides us gets the media attention.
It's true, man. And if you read the Bible, Satan, that's his main tactic,
game,
is
man.
to divide.
Yeah.
Did he really say, if you, just enough, put that little seed of doubt. It is very divisive. I almost wonder if, there's a lot of unintended consequences of everything, right? The ripple effect, the unintended consequences of technology, the unintended consequences of government action. What I'm kind of concerned about is there was things that took place right after 9/11, Patriot Act, for example.
Sure.
It's still around, right? It's never
Gave
going
up a
away.
lot of freedom with that.
The government is completely opposite of being an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you might hire someone for a specific job, but when that job's done, you don't just sit there and continue to justify hiring them. Whereas government agencies, you look at some of these agencies, why they were created. Those problems have been dealt with 120 years ago, but they're constantly justifying why they're in existence. I'm wondering what type of mandates or, basically freedoms will be taken away in the wake of COVID. 20 years from now, are going to still be here. We're like, why is that still here?
Well, that there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government solution.
Right.
I think we might have said that last
Yeah.
time we were here.
Yeah.
Yeah, great point. I mean,
That's what worries me, man. Give them an inch,
the government just exists. I mean, like, their purpose is just to grow their budget, right? I mean, how much money have we spent on the war on poverty?
Which is kind of crazy.
Right? It was 1960, right? That's
The
Lyndon
war on
Johnson.
drugs, yeah.
I mean, let's just go back. I mean, if you look at, these are some historical things that really bother me. Lyndon Johnson started his war on poverty, I think it was late 50s, early 60s, the Great Society. And the idea was that, that there was just this portion of America that was affected and they needed government assistance. And when he started that, African Americans that were born into a two-parent household was at 75%. And I believe it was 95% of what we'll call Caucasians were born into a two-parent household. All right, so after trillions of dollars, and we're now going on 60 years on the war on poverty, now today, as we move forward, African Americans, only 25% of African Americans are born into a two-parent household. And whites, as a percentage, have actually fared worse. They've gone from 5% to 25%.
Right.
So they've actually had a 500% increase. And having two parents in the household is the number one predictor of whether someone will go to prison, whether they'll go to college, whether
Something like 70,
successful.
80% of prisons are made up single
And
households.
that's Obama. Actually, Obama used those stats when he was running for office. That's not. But so I look at the war on poverty, and what have we done? We financially incentivized to break up the family because we would pay people more money if the dad wasn't in the picture. And that, looking back, and then the other stat that I'm getting political here that really upsets me is that 56% of all African American pregnancies end in abortion. And that infuriates me because we have Planned Parenthoods in neighborhoods all over this country.
Almost like it was
Basically,
strategically
we're
put.
governmentally
yeah.
funding abortion.
Don't read any Margaret Sanger
And
quotes.
then right to choose and this and that, and I'm sure that I'm stepping on toes, but regardless of any politics, the fact that 56% of pregnancy ends in abortion is a stat that tells me things are wrong. Because so many people are making the choice not to bring the baby into the world. and they're making their decision, and I support their decision, but that's a lot. It bothers me, especially after 60 years of the government fixing the problem. They haven't
And I think
fixed the problem at all.
I think that's the problem is, with welfare, all these, greenback stamps, whatever these people get to,
Sure.
to, it's almost like an oppression on them because the government's putting a thumb. Okay, you depend on us to get this.
It's replaced the father with the state.
Right. Yeah.
The state's turned into the dad.
now you can't survive without us. So we don't want you to better yourself.
Well, not
'cause
only
if you
that,
do,
but if
you're going to
try,
go.
we're going to take things away from you.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, we're financially incentivizing you not to go out and try to do better. And then the other thing that always upsets me, I'm a big believer. You and I've talked about you're the average of your 5 friends.
Yeah.
Public housing is something that really upsets me because we're taking everyone that's having a tough time and we're making them all live together. Okay, and that means that those kids that grow up there, their 5 friends are all struggling. I mean, if I could wave my wand and if I could wave my wand and do anything in America, and I can't, I would dismantle public housing and spend that money. I'd give more money to HUD, and let's put these people out in the community so that they can model, what I would call successful behavior. And the second thing I would do is if we have a family that's receiving welfare, we've got to give that family more money if the dad and the mom live together.
Start incentivizing the right
We
stuff.
need to incentivize the correct behavior, which is to have kids raised by 2 parents.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're doing a disservice. We're literally paying families to break up, and it's having a terrible effect.
That was going to be my next question. Is that at what point do we hold the average person accountable for? Like, if you're just going to sit back and I want to live off welfare and just live happily ever after in that state, or do I want to get 2 or 3 jobs and try to get out of it and build the white picket fence house? I mean, when do we stop? When do we lay blame on the average person?
Well, it's one of those don't hate the player, hate the game,
Yeah.
You see that like in the NFL when they're like, all right, we got to get rid of these quarterbacks are going out getting hit in the head. It's terrible. So we're going to severely fine. Well, it's no wonder people's knees are getting tore up now because all right, they stop hitting the head, they start hitting here. So it's one of those. You keep trying to fix the problem, and it actually makes it worse. You try to fix that problem, it makes it worse.
We got to not incentivize the wrong things. To your point, I've often told my kids this, like, my kids are doing well. They're doing well in school. They're going to go to college. But I can tell you right now that if I had taken my 2 boys and I had dropped them off and they had to grow up in a rough neighborhood and they just had their grandmother, right, to take care of them, they would have 0 shot at success. Neither one of them would be doing that well in school. Neither one of them would probably be going to college. I mean, I'm not making an excuse for my kids, but a lot of kids don't have a fair shot. And I think a lot of that fair shot is because of the system has incentivized the wrong thing. So when do we start?
After generations.
Yeah, and so when do we start holding people accountable? I mean, I think we always have to hold them accountable one-on-one. If they want to rise up, they're going to have to realize what truths are. But, man, when you're surrounded by people that are addicted to, we'll call them government benefits, I don't know that they can see which way out of the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tough part because it's basically like, when do we just rip the Band-Aid off? Because what we're talking about, hey, it is true. Two father and a mother in the house, it's great. But if I'm sitting here listening to this, I was raised by my grandma. It's like I'm 30. It's like, gee, what's that going to do for me? You know what I mean? It's like That's a long-term fix. I would argue something that's had the biggest impact on the world and society, more so than probably technology, is the invention of birth control.
Oh, wow.
Because it used to be when there was bigger repercussions getting someone pregnant and abortions were.
Yeah, sex and morality has definitely been divorced from each other.
I don't think through
birth control. It's not. I mean, I don't think you're putting that back unless there's some sort of awakening or reformation, like with Charles Finney in the 1800s, right? So we really get back to preaching hardcore, but it doesn't feel like that. And one of the things that we're going to have to admit too is that our phones are raising our kids. Like I can have some big time conversations with my kids, a couple times a week. We might have a 15, 20-minute deep conversation. What are they on that phone, 4 or 5 hours a day? Mm-hmm. So whatever that TikTok algorithm is, whatever they're feeding them, based on how they swipe and their eyeballs.
It's hard to compete.
That's who's raising your kids. I mean, we've outsourced that a great bit. I think that's scary.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, so what do my kids believe? Well, are they going to believe what big tech ultimately persuades them to believe?
Right.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's them growing up too. You know, I didn't have those coming up, but I like the old saying: the older you get, the smarter your parents get. You know, I'm still living that. Like, okay, they made a lot of sense. You know, I think what did Reagan say? Change begins at the dinner table. The problem is there's a lot of broken dinner tables in this.
Well, there are, but anyway, we're all over the board.
Complex questions.
Look,
have
that's
simple answers.
what we kind of came in
Yeah.
firing on all cylinders,
this
doing
like
what we want to
It's a
do.
Vegas buffet.
We call this ADHD.
Yeah, I mean,
Correct, yeah.
I am totally fine with this, Sergeant.
Take
We
my
can-
focus medicine here.
Yeah, I mean, but it's you're basically saying, hey, we didn't just this how we are right now didn't just spontaneously happen. There's cause,
No, and
there's
I don't-
cause and effect.
I don't think anybody acted out of bad intent. So I think one of the mistakes we make in the world over and over again is when we see behavior, we always try to assign to that behavior a bad intent. And really, almost everything that people do, it's usually out of a lack of awareness, or it's a mistake, or they just didn't realize it. But over and over and over again, we try to say, well, those people are just evil, or those people are trying to control me, or those people. That's almost never the case. Almost everyone's trying to do what's right. They just have a different approach. And you know, as I'm talking bad about Lyndon Johnson, the Great Society, but I have no doubt that there was right intent. My problem with it, and this is where we'll come full circle on it, is we're 60 years into incentivizing dads not to be in the home. It doesn't appear to be working.
It's not a 60-year experiment.
It doesn't
Let's look
appear
at
to
the
be working,
results.
and nobody appears to be backing up the bus on that, or addressing it, or wanting to talk about it, or to reallocate how the money's being spent to maybe improve the socioeconomic outcome of the very individuals that they originally intended to help. So, to your COVID point, yeah, I'm real scared about what policies are going to come out of this, because the government repeatedly demonstrates that they're not very good at backing the bus up.
Giving back power. Yeah.
Yeah, so preach, right?
But with all that being said, you know, I think I do love YouTube. Like, I'm on it all the time.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
And they have the on the street interviews from like the 70s and the 60s, and they've consistently asked people every decade, hey, do you think it's going to get better or worse in the future? And now, if this is like how good life is, it's been doing this for a while for
It really has.
everybody. But at every point, people say it's going to start doing this. Like, they're all saying the future's going to be worse than the past, when in reality, it's gotten better and better and better for just about everybody. As the saying goes, I'd rather be poor today than be the king of France 300 years ago. You know, so we are realistic. We don't want to come off as super pessimistic.
No. And technology, it's hard for me to wrap. I'm a visionary guy. I like to look into the future. It's really hard for me to wrap my mind around how fast technology is changing and how quickly I think it's going to.
It's not slowing down.
Well, no, all right, so, we were all driving horse and buggies, and then there was a car, and then there was probably a 15 to 20 year gap there where there were still horse and buggies, there were still cars, but then eventually one day it was just all cars on the road. I think you're going to see similar adaptation with, autonomous driving vehicles. I don't think my grandkids will ever have a driver's license. And that's really, I don't think the
I've heard
4
a lot of visionary type people.
I don't think 4-year colleges are going to, I don't think my grandkids will go to a 4-year college. Why?
Or 12 years.
It makes no sense to pay that money to send your kid to college. None. All of that can be learned online. We just learned that during COVID. They actually all shot themselves in the foot. But the one thing that I see in the future that we're not wrapping our heads around is AI. And I'll give you a quick example on AI. So you remember the chess tournaments? We may have talked about this last time I was here, but there used to be like a real human would play the IBM Big Blue. Did we talk about this?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
Right. So a human would play Big Blue, and we beat the computer for a long time. But ultimately, IBM, over the course of like 20 years, built a computer that was like a warehouse big that could figure out like 8 million moves a second. And they finally beat Garry Kasparov. Big moment. So, all right. So now computers are smarter than humans in chess. Well, since that time, computers have played computers. And for a long time, they just built bigger and faster computers that could process more moves per second. just a bigger mousetrap. But then it was like 4 or 5 years ago, Google basically brought like a telephone to the contest with AI software. And what the AI software did is instead of computing moves, and I'm not going to say this great, it learned how to play the game and learned from its mistakes. And
started taking on human characteristics.
it lost the first game and then has undefeated since. So it doesn't matter how fast this
So it
learns.
adapts.
It adapts and it learns. So now there's another big shift that's happening, and that's that the AI software is getting so good it can now write code. So you don't have to have coders anymore to create programs and stuff on computers. So I think that we're going to. I don't think technology just increases on a curve. I think it kind of has these big jumps, and I think I think our worlds are going to change a lot in good ways, things that we don't see. I mean, if we get to a point where it's all autonomous vehicles, right? If look across your car, you probably only drive it 2 or 3% of the time you own it. Your car sits 97% of the time. Your car just sits there, nobody's using it, and you're making a $500 payment a month, right? That's $2.6 million annualized out over your life, right? I know you got the car salesman on here. He's not gonna let me say this, but this idea that we all each own our individual cars, that's gonna go away. Because what you really just need is a fleet, and you need a car to just show up at your house when it knows you need it and take you where you want to go, and you don't have to drive, and you can do whatever else you want. And so then we don't need parking lots. I think a third of all real estate in cities is parking lots. They go away.
But that's not taking into account the importance of status in people's minds, right?
Yeah, well,
because you
Well,
can
like-
look at anyone's house. It's like,
Well, the
we don't need a
watch,
house
right?
that
The watch
big.
still survives, right?
Right.
And it serves no purpose at all.
So
So
I think
get it.
there is always that human status element, because if we boil it down, because you're painting a scenario that's getting to where it's like Wall-E, where they're all just fat going around the track.
I was thinking more like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Terminator.
Well, Terminator as well, but also on the other side, like you're making the efficiency argument, whether we need it. We don't really need.
Oh, there's a lot. Yeah. So, well, I guess the argument I'm making is just rate of change. I think that technology is going to get a lot better, a lot faster. And it really comes down to the AI. My point is that they battled out with those big computers for like 30 or 40 years. But then when AI came along, like, it got better. I mean, like, they got smarter immediately. And I think we're going to start interjecting AI. It's going to start showing up in a lot of
Become
different
more
places.
intuitive, yeah.
It's going to show up in education. It's going to show up in medicine. It's going to show up in transportation. It's going to show up in some really giant industries where you're going to take some big companies that already exist, and then AI and software and being connected are going to really change how we do things quickly. I think it's going to make the world a better place. I'm not.
It will ultimately. What I worry for are the different demographics that are lower.
Sure.
Collectively, aren't they? Whether it's
Does capitalism survive? Right? I mean, we just talked about our phones are raising our kids. Well, is it raising them to be socialist or capitalist?
Yeah.
I think I would argue the generation coming up now is going to be so much more conservative.
They're very entrepreneurial. This side hustle, young people.
That, and also a lot of millennials are so liberal that their kids are going to rebel a lot of times against their parents.
And a lot of them had a little bit of a reckoning in COVID, because a lot of the millennials are parents of young kids, and they're very upset about the way their kids were kind of discarded through COVID. So that's going to be a little bit of a reckoning. But this young group, we still don't know exactly what they are, but they appear at first glance to be the most entrepreneurial group. They don't want to work for anybody that we've had come up in a long time. That could be good. So, but what we really need to make sure is that capitalism survives. Like this whole notion of the evil 1%, and that's got to go away. People need to understand that
the Pareto principle applies.
Yes,
across
and
everything.
we need to understand that, yes, there are very rich people, right? You have George Soros. He's really rich. He provides no value in the world. He just breaks up companies and buys and sells things. But, Jeff Bezos is a billionaire because he solved a lot of problems.
Right.
Elon Musk is solving a lot of problems. There are people that add value to the world
How
that
crazy
are
it is.
rich.
I order something, forget about it, and then and it's at my front door.
People, I mean, and
There's a
15
lot
years
that goes-
ago, that didn't exist. People bringing stuff to your house. It didn't exist. You had to go get it.
They get shot.
Yeah, that's what they.
25 years ago,
Because remember the Domino's drivers that would get killed when they would go to, it was like taboo. You couldn't have anyone come to your house. Now it's like, oh,
Yeah, now we got doorbells so we can see who's there.
Chris, you remember that guy on the You Betcha channel?
Oh yeah.
And it was like baby boomers ordering online, and it's like, he wants my address. What the hell is this? He's like, can I pay you when you get here like I do for the pizza? You know, so it is pretty wild. And there's part of you that's like, hey, this is inevitable. Like, this is what progress, at least with innovation, this is what it looks like. And then there's the other side that's like, well, this is clearly why they're pushing for a cashless society so they can seize and blah, blah, blah. It's a master plan.
Sure.
The truth's always going to fall somewhere in the middle, hopefully.
Well, I've always seen that through my years. You look at the gas situation that we have now. Well, I remember being 4 in my dad's car, and we were waiting in line to get gas. It's like we're talking lines and lines, and so
it was
that
the soup and bread line during the Great
we had to get that. Yeah,
That was 78, 80. I mean, when Carter was president, there were, I don't know, I think he was at war maybe with OPEC a little bit.
Yeah.
But there were some, I remember gas lines at the pump was a thing.
and we
where you'd see
couldn't.
people lined up like in a hurricane here.
So, but I want to be optimistic
Oh, fair.
that things work themselves out. And I think the good part about what happened through COVID and what we just experienced is that you are seeing people that are, well, maybe I shouldn't trust the government all that much. Maybe I shouldn't trust the media.
What did it
that
get
much.
me? Yeah.
Yeah, I did all this and I got, okay, so I got a $600 check. Well, that didn't solve anything. That just let me survive for another week. It's like now people, and I think that's why you're seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs. Like we had Dalton on here, and he started his business. My son started a business.
Well, there's never been a time in the history of the world where there's greater access to capital and technology that allows you to scale. Ever. In the history of the world. You can make more money right now than ever before. And so it's crazy how many people are raised up to believe that America is this or America is that, or, you can't succeed because of that you're a female, or, this identity politics stuff, or because you're African American, or because you color your skin. It's crazy. Like, there's never been more access to capital ever. And so, I mean, I tell people all the time, you just need to be smart about what business you go into. You need to make sure that you're not going into something that technology can attack you on.
And assume whatever you're going in that you think assume it can be attacked on and like plan accordingly.
What's going to get displaced? Like, what
Right,
industry is going to get
yeah.
displaced by
I
technology?
just think that the silver lining of COVID is that we've created people that don't want to be lazy. They don't want to sit around. You may have those people that do, but I think you're going to see a population that's going to come up like, I don't want to depend on anybody. I'm going to do the shit myself, and go forward.
I think we had a lot of assumptions. I agree with you, Billy, 100%. I think we had a lot of assumptions. Maybe we were just asleep at the switch, but no one ever thought that they would shut down business for 65 days. Like, no one ever thought that they would tell us,
flatten the curve.
tell us that we could do this or that. So I think that a lot of Americans have been reintroduced to the ideas of the founding of the country and the liberties that that our government is actually there to protect our liberty and to protect our freedoms, and not just because they're the almighty government. And not only that, but, and I don't want to get too political, but man, I mean, almost every single thing we were told about COVID ended up being not quite right.
Let's just call it. It was bullshit.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that we talked about it before. Like, it's just a glorified flu. I don't want to. I mean, other people are going to get mad at me, and I understand people have died from it, but
it was probably. I would probably take issue. I'd say it's a little bit worse than the flu. It was not worth $6 trillion. I think that there's going to be a reckoning. I think the baby boomers in this country at some point are going to have to come to understand that they bankrupted this nation to the tune of about $6 trillion. They bankrupted their kids. They bankrupted their grandkids. They declined America's prospects because they got scared.
right.
And, I'm going to take some heat for saying that. but I think it's
They
the
don't know how to
first
work
time. I
YouTube
think it's the
either.
first time.
They'd be like, "Excuse me, master."
Yeah, R2D2. Where
Chris,
were we?
is it
It's picking up.
It's going. Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, baby,
Baby boomers.
out of fear.
They're gonna have to. They're is this the first time in the history of the world with the baby boomers that the older generation bankrupted the younger generation out of fear? I mean, that's a fair question, and I don't think a lot of people are really ready to start asking these questions. But there was a report that came out from Johns Hopkins that the lockdowns didn't work. Masking is almost become religious, and whether you believe in it or don't believe
It's
it.
cosmetic.
I will just point out though that we were told no mask, then we were told yes you need to mask, then we were told it's okay for it to be a cotton mask. Then we were told it was to be a bandana. Then it was a regular mask. Then it was 2 masks. Then it was 1 mask again. And now we're back to an N95 mask. And follow the science is hilarious to me as their battle cry, because science at its nature is skepticism.
I was going to say, most scientists
It's
originally were the most.
No, it is. And all you can prove in science is that something doesn't happen, not that it does.
It's like,
again, if people want to check me on this, you can fact check me. I think there have been 18 randomized, controlled, peer-reviewed studies on the effect of masking stopping respiratory-borne illness prior to COVID-19, and I think all 18 of those studies had found that it was ineffective in stopping the spread of a respiratory
what
virus
was
in
the
the community setting. And then all of a sudden,
let's be honest, it's like wearing a condom when you go to bed because you're worried about getting the neighbor's wife pregnant. It's about that. It's like, it's the same
You went to
rationale.
look at it. It just didn't. It didn't.
It's like,
What's the
yes.
scientist that took the mask and put a vape in and blew the vape through the mask?
But what did Matt? Well, so I want to hate on masking, right? But then I am certain that there were a lot of people that would not have come in my business if we weren't wearing masks. So in that regard, I was able to make profit with mask because it gave people a security.
There's a lot of
blanket.
silly things we do that we're just like,
Well,
whatever,
and
put up with it.
But yeah, and so what I've learned through all of this is that, man, the power of fear is something that's really difficult to understand. It's divorced from reason.
Oh yeah.
Like when you're scared, you'll just straight up make decisions that you wouldn't make. And not only would you not make them, but people can come to you with fact A, fact B, fact C. You're like, I don't give a shit. I'm scared.
Yeah.
And so it triggers a different decision making in us. And to me, a lot of COVID was just one long, drawn out fear response. Mm-hmm. I blame the media for that. I blame political leaders that sought advantage during an election season for it. But once we've gotten on the other side of it, once you have a certain percentage of the populace that is scared, you can't reason them out of that position.
And I don't have a problem with the mask. It's such an individual. I'm not going to balk at someone because they wear a mask.
No,
in the back of my mind, I'd be like, okay, dude, that really doesn't work. But for me, I don't care what you do.
Yeah,
But if it affects me,
well, it's virtue signaling now
Yeah.
too. So the other night we played Carborough High School. Okay, and they
that next to
is Chapel Hill,
Vanborough.
right beside Chapel Hill. And so they come down.
next to
Tarboro?
pickup truck.
Their AD called our school to say, "Hey, your player's going to be wearing masks." So Wes Carter hasn't worn masks all year when we play basketball because it's not a state rule. And so we were like, "No, we're not playing masks." Okay, well, our players are going to have masks on. They wear masks for every game. So their players had masks on, and you can go watch the video.
During the game?
Every one of them had a mask on. You ready for this? Around their chin. the whole game. Whether they were in the game or on the bench, the whole team had on mask on their chin the whole game.
Wow.
So when I want to be cautious when I speak to that, because whatever's making them decide that is in the best interest of their health is not something I understand.
Science.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But they clearly they have come to believe that is the right action. Now, is it because of what it signals? Is it because of what it shows? Is it because of it helps you identify?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is my team. I'm on Team Mask. But when I saw that, I was like, yeah, how do you talk people out of that? Wearing masks on their chins for the whole game. So,
Or the pictures
Can't
of
be
like,
stupid.
of like the marching bands who cut off the mask with the and it has sometimes you just let them go and they'll create their
Look,
own.
whatever solves their fear. If that's something that makes them feel comfortable, by all means do it. Just don't look at me and go.
But it's
and-
yeah, I was
well,
gonna
no,
say
say don't look at me and go. Oh my God, I can't believe you're wearing a mask. That's my choice. Respect
I'm
my
going to take some heat on this too, but one of the things that gives me great pleasure now is that the current virtue signaling is to not only wear a mask, but it's an N95, right? I mean, these tight fitting, really, and I don't know if you guys have worn N95,
if they're,
but you
can't-
there's
I
a
wore
reason
masks
surgeons don't wear them because you can't breathe in them.
they're very hard.
I mean, so and a surgeon doesn't want to pass out and hit his head during surgery. So that, you don't wear them in the medical setting. But so when I fly now, and I think that there's a lot of judgment going on. You talked about what car you drive, what watch you wear. You can't tell me that there's not mask judgment going on a plane.
Oh, no doubt.
And so the true believers have the N95, but not only that, it has N95 written on the mask right here.
Of course.
So it's like I mean, they're throwing it right in your face. But
You got the great value in 95.
But what gives me great pleasure is I know how miserable they are in that mask compared to mine. So I think I'm okay with it. We're both wearing masks.
James
but
is
theirs is much more.
like, none of this is coming in.
Theirs is awful. So I'm like, okay, we can do this.
It's a
we
lot
can
of
do this.
there's a lot of ego investment in certain positions.
Yeah.
Because there's
None of us want to be wrong.
There's those on the other side who took the no mask stance that wasn't based on science. It was based on, well, F you, I'm not wearing it. And if science came out that said, no, these are actually beyond a shadow of a doubt will save your life. It's like, no, forget that. I'm a no masker. So it could go both.
And let me say that my position on masking has evolved because when I was after we were closed down for 65 days and we still didn't know what COVID was or how it was affecting us, I was very much pro mask. I mean, I wanted my stylist to be in mask. I wanted my customers in mask because we just didn't know. Again, as we're talking about with the Great Society, looking back, I wish government, now that we're 2 years down the road and we have the great example that is Florida, and now that they're really not dying in the streets. The government just gets so vested in its positions and doesn't look back and change tracks.
Who's going to get reelected by saying, hey, I screwed up?
But mask got us back to work. It got us out of the lockdown. It got the economy moving again. I don't think that airline would have survived without it because they had to create a situation where enough people would feel comfortable flying to survive.
You're in a capsuled
place. But it's just, I don't understand how we get so locked in. And it becomes almost religious-like. But man, they're masking so that which divides us perfectly, masking will be around for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on,
This has been
it's a human condition.
I mean, look, the king himself wore a mask all the time. The king of pop himself, Michael Jackson.
Michael J. Why did Michael J. wear a mask? Was he just ahead of his time?
Yeah.
I think he saw the writing on the wall.
See the Omicron
about
just exploded
12 years
in Japan?
It just exploded.
Where they wear their mask? Yeah. Oh, yeah. It went nuts. It's going nuts right now.
And that's another crazy thing. And that's confirmation bias, or people will get more rooted in their opinion the more opposing evidence they'll be given, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point.
That's the crazy thing. Like, if this is my position, if I'm convinced you're a jerk, people can show me, well, here's a baby he saved, and here's like, I don't care. He's a jerk. You're convincing me he's even more of a jerk now because that's all an act. It's
And social media, like we talk about the world, but that's something that I hope people will come to see through COVID, like you're talking about. That we're not going to trust the government as much, but like you said, I think one of the things that'll come out of COVID too is I think there's been a great awakening or more of an awareness as to how much we were being manipulated by social media. Mm-hmm. And I think there's just a recognition now. There's still going to be a lot of sheep, and people are still angry at each other on both sides of the coin. But ultimately, I don't know how we can get through this and not all realize that we're being
both sides throw their guns down and be like, hey, it turns out my side isn't perfect, and neither is it is crazy how
it is. Yeah, it's blurred the lines between.
We've turned into like soccer hooligan fans for our team.
Correct. Yeah, we're just ready to
fight the other team. We're fanatics,
and both people on both sides truly believe they're vested in the right.
Absolutely.
I mean, no. I mean, there's no evil here, but I think that the echo chambers that they get on their phone reinforces their beliefs daily.
I would argue a little bit. People on the right, we tend to think people on the left are wrong.
And they think we're stupid.
They tend to think we're evil.
Or stupid, and vice versa.
Stupid, but evil too. I mean, you look at that's why a lot of their messaging works, because you'll have a conservative that's like, well, based on the budget spreadsheet, yada yada, income outflow, this is why we have to do this with Medicare. And then on the left, it's like they want to kill babies and old people. You see what I'm saying? It's a difference in messaging.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to watch the Democratic Party over the next, I'm gonna call it 8 years, because they've got a problem coming down the pipe. Okay, and that's that. If we're going to talk about Democrats, classic liberals. Okay, but classic liberals actually believed in a few things. They believed in freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of thought, freedom of expression, and that none of those tenets
are Nazis today, by the way.
None of those tenets are supported by what I'm going to label our cultural socialist. And those are people that support like critical race theory, CRT, this idea that the way to solve racism is to be racist. Just put simply, two wrongs make a right, right? We've had racism, so the way we're going to fix it is we're going to be racist. Mm-hmm. And I'd say that group's kind of led by AOC and her ilk. But those are not, and really you've seen it with Rogan. So Rogan is as left-wing as they get. Bill Maher's as left-wing as they get. And they've been attacked by the Democrats for basically engaging in free speech. Look at what they tried to take Chappelle out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for his friend that was the So I'm not afraid to even say is it transvestite or
there's a trans friend that he was supporting, and he's just been at war with that community because he dares speak. So it's going to be interesting. They're going to have to decide in the Democratic Party whether they still believe in those classical liberal beliefs of freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of association, because that is not at all what's being promoted in what I would say at the university level with CRT, or, that words are violence. That's the dumbest thing ever. Words are violence. Or if you're silent, that's violence. Like, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true at all, and I'm sorry your little snowflake ass is getting your feelings hurt.
You hit on this pretty good, because you're talking about the universities shot themselves in the foot by the online. So there is going to be some positive impacts of this. People seeing, when this prestigious university goes online, there's no difference between that and...
You won't talk about a bubble. That's going to come crashing down.
The universities?
They're going to have to, legislatively, the only way they can survive is to mandate free college. And I'm going to explain why. So if you think about historically a college, right, it was the reason they were formed is because you had to go to where the books were to get smarter.
Right.
You literally had to, Carolina's got a famous story. Hinton James is the first student. He walked from Wilmington to Chapel Hill. But you had to go because that's where the books were, because in the books were the knowledge. And then so you would bring the professors there, they would read the books, they would teach the students, and then you would disperse that knowledge back out into the communities. Okay, so we've built up over 200 years these sacred institutions of learning where you have to go there to get educated. None of that is true anymore,
right?
At all. In fact, all the universities demanded that they teach remotely during the COVID. I don't think they understood that they were literally cutting the legs out from their whole business model, which is that you got to go there to get smart.
You got to pay for the meal ticket. You
saw the same thing with like late night shows when they were filming in their kitchen. You're like, oh my god,
It's
not
only
anything better than.
it's only a matter of time
watch a
before
magician and a jockey get the same thing.
it's only a matter of time before Google comes up with a 4-year degree and they charge you $5,000.
Yeah.
And if you look at college budgets, they're essentially paying their professors the same amount of money as they were 30, 40 years ago. All of the increase in tuition has gone towards these administrative positions within universities, diversity, equity, inclusion programs, massive budgets, for this kind of internal policing horse shit that doesn't have anything to do with the education of the kids. So higher education is screwed. I mean, you talk about, so if we hit a real inflation or a big time depression, you're not going to spend $240,000 to send your kid to go get a liberal arts degree at Tufts.
What does Ben Shapiro say? A master's in lesbian dance theory. Yeah.
Correct, right? I mean, that's going to be fascinating to watch that implode. But big tech obviously lies in the same political bed with higher education, and universities are obviously both very left. But they're going to cut the legs out from these universities, and you're going to see a lot of colleges go out of business. That's going to happen. It makes no sense anymore because you can receive the same education from home.
Yeah, I don't think COVID might have just shorten the timeline. I think
Who knew University of Phoenix was going to be the
Yeah, they were kind of leading the way, right?
Well, I say college degrees now are like high school degrees. But I think there'll have to be a college 2.0, so master's but then eventually.
Well, I think you got to go off and grow up.
Absolutely.
But that's really what we're paying.
Yes.
I mean, I'm getting ready to send one next year, right? And that's basically, I'm just paying to get them the hell out the house and grow the F up.
Learn how to talk to girls.
But it doesn't feel like I got to pay that much money to do this.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, right? I mean, we're just we're facilitating their, we're paying for their adolescence to continue a little longer.
It boils down to control, man. Like life is very chronological. We talked about that with Dalton. First grade goes to second grade, fifth grade goes to sixth grade.
Factory workers. We were raised.
School goes to college.
Our whole education system is to raise factory workers.
Right.
Sit in rows, move when the bell rings, 100%, no error rate. We were trying to create workers that were very precise, that would not mess up on machines so they could replicate goods at a high rate. Ding, 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 right?
Try to make
move forward.
Irrational humans predictable, essentially.
We still test people based on memory. You don't need to memorize shit anymore. It's on your phone. You could Google it.
When we were kids,
problem solvers.
They're like, you're not going to have a calculator everywhere you go.
Yeah, why do you need that? You're going to be at the grocery store later to get your bill.
We still teach foreign language in high school when we know for certain that your brain closes its ability to learn a foreign language well at about 6 or 7.
Right.
You want to teach kids a foreign language? Teach them in kindergarten. They'd all know how to speak Spanish.
Bill Burr's like, I'm on my third try at Rosetta Stone Spanish. It's like, yeah, it is. It is wild, but it's innovation.
I think it's the greatest time. How can there ever be a better time to live?
Yeah.
I mean, the world's amazing right now. That access to information, access to opportunity. I mean, the only thing that gets in your way is your mind.
It is.
I mean, shit. I mean, why would you ever want to be born at any other time? Name me the time when it was better. And you're probably thinking the 70s with Burt. I could see you as a big chest hair guy.
I don't grow any, man.
You don't? Yeah, but I could have seen you in the 70s really embracing that look.
Same with the mustache.
Maybe it's that full beard.
Probably so.
Proud of that thing.
He's just saying I get a lot of chicks, is what he's saying.
You would have. I could see you embracing the 70s.
No, man, I love being. I think, yeah, it is crazy when you think your sides. After this past election cycle, I was like, oh, okay, politics is professional wrestling. Like, there was a time when I learned professional wrestling wasn't real. It actually took it was depressing, but it's like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. It's more entertainment. That's maybe I just became so cynical after this. I'm like, oh, if their side could not accomplish this stuff against my side unless my side was in on it. Like they couldn't for the mob to exist, there had to be dirty cops. Had to be.
I saw it was as recently as only like 15 or 20 years ago that when a Supreme Court judge would get nominated that on average like 93 of the senators would vote for him. So it was really only 20 years ago when it wasn't perfectly divided. I think that coverage and all the information in social media has more divided politics, and so now it's not safe to cross the line because you'll get taken out.
You don't want to become a meme. I mean, look at the kids today. How do they know Michael Jordan? It's that crying meme. Isn't that pretty wild?
I know that they don't remember him for his basketball.
Well, I mean, he was retired 20 years before they were born or whatever,
And then back to one of the points I wanted to make earlier about social media. We're all over the board today, but all social media, their business is making non-important information urgent. Right? I think I tell my kids there's a matrix in their life, right? There's important stuff you got to do and not important stuff. And then there's urgent and non-urgent. That's Covey, 7 Habits. I know you were going there. I could see it in your eyes.
Page 64.
But right, all social media does is take non-important shit, like who's eating pork chops today, and make it urgent. And they don't even lie to you because they call the damn thing notifications.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, here's some more non-important shit that we're going to buzz, on your phone. But that's their whole business model.
And they don't care what that is.
Eyeballs. They just want eyeballs.
Yeah.
They want your attention. They want your focus. And that's why. And so TikTok's been fascinating because that's an incredible app for keeping your attention.
I don't have any social other than LinkedIn. And
Bo Tracker's a really good TikTok dancer.
Yeah, buddy. Man, we could go on.
God, I know.
What am I going to title this?
I don't.
ADD gone loose. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like the cannonball rolling.
Because I'm like
the deck
sitting here,
of
I'm
the ships.
like, damn, we need to have James in next week because I'm going to talk about the whole like Black Lives Matter. I want to talk about the Me Too movement and how. So anyway, that's for another.
Yeah, no, I think I think the world's a fascinating place, but I could not be more optimistic about the future. I think that, and if you're a kid like right now, listening to this, like, man, go get yours. Literally, go get yours.
And that's one positive benefit of social media is they're seeing examples
Yes.
of people getting
Yes.
theirs.
Well, you said this many times.
Non-traditional route.
You said this. The world becomes smaller now because of social media.
Well, I think it does. Or we were talking about the kids who died in the plane crash, and I remember when I was that age how small my world was.
Yes.
It was Carteret County. Well, now you can follow somebody in Dubai, so people are open to more. Yeah, I guess we're more connected now digitally, but probably less.
So I think the first trend in digital connectivity actually kind of dispersed us. So let me kind of walk you through my theory here. So we all used to talk on the porch to each other, and then air conditioning got invented. So we didn't sit on the porch, so we went inside. So then we were bound by what we watched on TV. And so there were only 3 channels, and there were these massive television programs in America like, everyone would watch the Super Bowl, like hundreds of millions, or everybody would watch the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. Mm-hmm. And so when they would go to work, they would talk about that. And it was really because we're no longer on the porch talking to each other because of air conditioning. TV kind of binded us. It was what we would talk about when we got together.
What'd you watch last night? What we all watched. We didn't have any
but hold tight. So what happened, right? So first thing is we got 150 channels. So we started spreading out our attention there. And then we got Facebook, and we were just kind of paying attention to our friends. And so all of a sudden we found ourselves in this world where we weren't all watching the same thing.
Right.
But then TikTok happened. And TikTok changed the game. Facebook is stuck in an algorithm where it's only what your friends do. TikTok goes after what you like. And all of a sudden now, we have trends that we all know about. All of a sudden, we're all watching Ed Sullivan again. All of a sudden, we're all doing this little funny dance, or we're all doing this. And you're seeing these trends blow up that connect us.
Yep.
That's much more powerful than the way it's been done before. So actually, by everyone having their own tailored content feed on TikTok, I would argue, as crazy as it sounds, we're actually more connected now in the material that we're consuming,
right,
because they know what's popular. And if it's popular, it gains traction. Ultimately, if I make a great pecan pie and put a picture of it on frickin' Facebook, it ain't going to get no more than 132 likes, even though it's dumb as shit. But if I did some stupid wiggle dick dance in front of a mirror, and I got it,
There's your title. There's the title of the
I got some, you know,
wiggle dick dance.
I get some, you know, all of a sudden I go viral. You know, there'll be 25 million people watching the dumb video. So what TikTok's done, pay attention to this, is it is bringing everyone back together under trends that I would say that multiple television and the first iteration of social media kind of divided. And so that's why it's so powerful, and that's why Zuckerberg is getting his ass kicked right now, because TikTok has figured out how to bring us back together by doing it all differently. It's fascinating.
It's very fascinating.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's the paradox of choice. You have 150 channels. You're first like, oh, this is awesome. Oh, this is awesome. And then eventually you're like, well, I know I watched 12, 51, and that's it. And if there's nothing on there, I turn it off.
Correct, right? And then like when you come to the end of your series on Netflix, you're like, shit, I got to find something else to watch. Like there's pressure. Like you don't want to invest in watching a series and it's not good.
Dude,
so.
when Boardwalk Empire, I didn't realize it was the final season.
Oh,
I watched the finale and it was done. I'm like, all right, cool. I was waiting for that music to kick back up, and then it kicked to like the next show.
Wait,
I'm
they
like,
didn't make another season?
I'm like, what? Okay, something happened. I backed it up, and it was like, no, I finished the whole series, dude. I was legitimately depressed.
Man, we covered a lot of stuff.
Wow.
A lot of stuff. It was fun though.
Yeah, man. This is
good. This is
what's the title here? Is it ADD on a Sunday? Wiggle dick in the rain?
wiggle dick dance. It's wiggle dick
The
dance.
long-term study of ADHD.
I stole that from Portnoy from Barstool Sports. He calls them wiggle dickers, like all these little TikTok guys.
I love it. I don't know. Sometimes I like these. I like to listen.
Yeah.
And then because it's almost like a cleansing. Something you hear a lot of thoughts, and I get set in my ways. Obviously I'm
we all do.
leaning on the right, but sometimes I have to be pulled back and say, okay, well maybe.
Yeah, I would say I'm probably socially liberal and
He's afraid
fiscally
of commitment.
conservative.
Yeah. Everyone now that calls himself a conservative would pretty much like 40 years ago have been considered to be fairly liberal.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think the right down in America, right, there's that meme. It's like, I support your right to marry whoever you want to marry as long as I can have my gun and smoke my weed and nobody messes me and my taxes are low. It's like there are common themes and they're not going to get coverage because they don't divide us, but we're settling in on some positions here.
Gavin McInnes said there's two groups of people, especially with politics. There's those that want to be left alone and those that won't leave you the hell alone. And there's vast majority fall in that first group. It's like, who cares? Like, do what you want, but
I think through COVID, to your point, you're going to see people united in this election on some things that maybe we don't see coming, though. I think parents have decided that they want to be full control over education of their kids.
Yeah.
Homeschooling is going to continue.
saw that in Virginia.
Yeah, and homeschooling is going to continue to grow. Technology is going to allow that, and I think public education will have some long-term financial setbacks, but. Whenever we look back on our own lives, it was the worst things that we went through that end up shaping us the most and giving us the most character. And I would argue that these 2 years hopefully have toughened up America a little bit. Because what do we had 40 straight years of lowering interest rates? Like we got hard times coming. Like there's a recession coming. Like inflation's here.
You can't deny it.
Yeah, I mean, and the way it's covered is going to be, it's doom and gloom, but we're going to be fine.
winter is coming.
Great show, by the way. Game of Thrones.
And who knows?
Terrible ending.
Terrible ending.
We'll defeat it in 20 minutes. We'll defeat it in a 20-minute part in the last.
Yeah, this might be the most rant. What's that quote from the movie Billy Madison? That nothing you said during this rant.
We are all now dumber for listening to this.
I award you 0 points, and they got have mercy on me.
That's it. Signing off. I award no one at this table points.
So guys, but that being said, do us a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button.
Smash the like button.
James, thank you so much for coming back in. Well, let's do this again.
Thank you, producer Chris, for being on the ones and
The
twos.
young jock. Guys, smash the like button.
God, you ruined it. That's my job.
I've got
Just go. We'll see you.
Smash and grab.
We'll see you on the next video.
Peace.